The title for my sermon this morning is The Good News and the Bad. How would you feel if the first thing you discovered upon reaching heaven was that the person that brought you to the church was not there? Have you ever thought about that? And what if then you found out that your former next-door neighbor, who was a terrible criminal, and who had been sentenced to life in prison, was there in heaven? Or what if you looked in vain for your son or your daughter who had been heavily involved in drugs, and then you discovered that the one who had sold them the drugs was now in heaven, and your child was not? These, of course, are hypothetical questions. I'm not saying that it's a guarantee to happen, but we do know that there will be some big surprises in heaven. There will be people who thought would surely be there, who may be missing, and some we thought surely wouldn't be there, just may be there. You see, God judges by a different system than ours. We look only at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. In her book, Christ Object Lessons, Sister Ellen G. White writes, "Often we regard as hopeless subjects the very ones whom Christ is drawing to himself. Many will be in heaven who in their neighbors supposed would never enter there. Man judges from appearance, but God judges the heart." Let's read in the Bible a little more in order for us to be able to see how God's system really works. There's a parable in the Bible that is perhaps one of the strangest stories Jesus ever told. And this story perhaps may bring us face to face with something that we may not agree with. The story is found in Matthew 20, verses 1 to 16. Matthew 20, verses 1 to 16. And it says, let's first read verses 1 to 4. Verse 1, "For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard." You see, in biblical times, it was very common for men, particularly laborers, to wait in public places, like a marketplace, or by the big city gates to be hired for the day. A landowner would go and hire laborers who were standing around idle in the marketplace. And now let's read verse 2. "And when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace." It was typical for the landowner to go out at different times of the day to hire laborers who are standing around in the marketplace in those days. Now in verse 4, "And said unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right I will give you. And they went their way." They didn't have an agreed sum of payment. They accepted his offer of whatever is right. They trusted him. Now let's read in verses 5 to 7. "Again he went out about the 6th and 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out, and found others standing idle, and saith unto them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He saith unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall ye receive." Well, a worker can't lose out by standing idle at the 11th hour, or about 5 p.m., with only 1 hour before it is time to quit. If all he had done is to himself was picking grapes during the last hour and getting nothing for his labor, he is still better off if he would be there than standing idle in the street corner. These workers who were hired the last hour were fresh and full of energy. They had done nothing all day. I can imagine them picking grapes faster than anyone else, just for the novelty of having something to do besides standing around. Perhaps the rest of the workers turn their backs to them and say, "Sure, they're full of energy. Wait till they've worked almost 12 hours long, like we have, and then we would see how enthusiastic they would be." Now let's read in verse 8. Here was the first sign of trouble. "So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard saith unto his steward, Call the laborers, and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first." Certain people had gotten up before sunrise. They had to very quickly eat their breakfast and make their way into town, where they would be hired for a day's work. They were hired for the day by a vineyard owner. In the vineyard, they had worked hard for 12 hours. They were hot and dusty. They were tired and anxious to get home, wash, and have something to eat, and spend a little time left in the day with their wife and children. Then they would fall onto their bed, exhausted, only to do it all over again tomorrow. And now, instead of getting their pay and being allowed to go on their way, they had to stand there and wait for the 1-hour workers to get their pay first. Now, don't you think that the vineyard owner was a troublemaker? Let's now read in verse 9. "And when they came that were hired about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny." Suddenly, things began to look good. It looked really good for the 11th hour workers, who received a penny, which was a whole day's pay just for 1 hour's work. How would you react if you were in their place? One reaction could be to figure out that the vineyard owner was a bit crazy, and you would think how you could rip him off the next day. Or an opposite reaction could be that you are so grateful for the generosity of the kind vineyard owner that you decide to come out and work for the next day for free. But now, only did things look good for the 1-hour workers. Things look good for the 12-hour workers as well. They looked over their shoulders at the ones who were paid first and started calculating in their minds how much money they would get. They were also so impressed in their minds with the generosity of the vineyard owner. But they didn't stay impressed for long. Verse 10 says, "But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more. And they likewise received every man a penny." Remember what we read in Matthew 20, verse 4 and 7? They would get paid whatsoever was right. The vineyard owner told them that. Now, what do you think? Is this good news or is this bad news? If the vineyard owner had decided to pay the 12-hour workers first and send them on their way, then they may not have discovered what he paid the other workers. But for some reason, the vineyard owner wanted them to see what was going on. When the 12th-hour workers, they were upset. Verse 11 to 16 says, "And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house, saying, These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? Take that thine is, and go thy way. I will give unto this last, even as unto thee. It is not lawful for me to do what I can with mine own. Is thine eye evil, because I am good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. The vineyard owner had said, Take that thine is, and go thy way. They were focused on what they thought they deserved, rather than being grateful. Apparently, they didn't even want to take their pay. They were ready to tell the vineyard owner he could keep his money. He had to plead with them to take it with them. Wouldn't you also think that the vineyard owner was a little bit unfair? The early workers felt jealous and entitled, thinking they deserved more. Sometimes we may feel like we deserve more blessings because we have worked harder in our Christian work. But everything we have is a gift from God, not something we earn. If you don't think that the vineyard owner was trying to make trouble, perhaps it is because you may already have an idea of who the vineyard owner is. And he is God. You don't want to admit that sometimes God's system looks strange to us. Even the systems of the world that we are used to is entirely different. Even those who may think themselves as spiritually mature, who have learned to appreciate God's system as far as heavenly things are concerned, they may still live by the merit system when it comes to earthly matters. In our work, in our schools, in our lives here on earth, everything is based on the merit system. You get what you earn, and you earn what you get. No more, and hopefully no less. It exists through all of society. It may possibly even exist in our church. From a baby on, every one of us has had to live with the system of merit. To receive a gift, really and truly for free, is a rare thing in this world. Receiving this type of gift may even make the person on receiving it very uncomfortable. This parable challenges the world's idea of fairness. We think in terms of earning rewards, but God operates on grace and mercy. So instead of focusing on what we think we deserve, we should be thankful for what God has given us. Just like the landowner gives the same reward to all the workers, God offers salvation freely to all, whether they have served him for many years or come to the faith at the last hour. Some people come to conversion and to the truth early in life, like some of the early workers in the parable, while others come later, like the 11th hour workers. The important thing is not when we come to God, but that we answer his call. We must never be jealous when God blesses others. Instead, we must be grateful for his grace in our own lives. We need to learn to rejoice when others come to the faith, even if it's late in life, and to serve God with a joyful heart, not out of expectations for rewards, but because we love him and want to serve him always. We need to trust God's fairness, even when it doesn't match our expectations. Now, let's look at another example in the Bible. Let's now turn to Luke 7, where we will read about the centurion's servant who was sick. And at his request, the Jewish leaders came to Jesus, asking that his servant be healed. They were on the merit system. You wouldn't ever find these leaders coming and requesting healing for a blind beggar or a leper or a widow woman. But the centurion, we are told in Luke verses 4 and 5, that he had built a synagogue. So let us now read Luke 7, verse 4 and 5. And when they came to Jesus, they besought him instantly, saying that he was worthy for whom he should do this. For he loveth our nation, and he hath built us a synagogue. Jesus started out for the centurion's house, and when finally the centurion himself comes to Jesus, in spite of the fact that the Jewish leaders thought he was worthy, the centurion says of himself, I am not worthy. And Jesus marveled at him and said, I have not found so great faith. No, not in Israel. It is a fact that none of us can ever be worthy. No one can ever earn or merit God's grace or favor. Yet, men and women always want to be worthy. When we have worked through the heat of the day, and when we see those who come at the last minute and receive an equal reward to ours, we find our reward hard to take. The message that we can never be saved in any way on the basis of our works can be bad news for the one that is used to paying his entire way. Yet, this is the very foundation on how God operates. He works on the gift system all the way. Today, we have a choice to let Jesus into our hearts. Jesus is still saying to each one today, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and sup with him, and he with me. Revelation 3:20. And when Jesus knocks at the door of your heart, where do you want to be? We can be thankful today for all the warnings in the Bible that are given to wake us up out of our sleep. The time of shaking will soon be upon us. God is doing everything possible to help us to be shaken in instead of being shaken out. And the fellowship with himself that he offers us is designed to last for an eternity if we invite him into our hearts today. I'd like to close by telling a story about a man named Tom. Tom was a criminal, a really bad criminal. Not just your ordinary small-town crook. If you can think of any crime, he had committed it. In fact, he prided himself on not hesitating to commit every crime he had in his heart set. On everything he had set out to do, but one day he was caught. Now, Tom sat in a prison trying to figure out what his next move would be. He thought desperately of escape. He thought of suicide. Neither was possible. He was too closely watched by the prison guards. He practiced all sorts of speeches, denying his illegal activities, but not one of them sounded convincing, even to him. He was in big trouble, and he knew it. The longer he sat there, thinking about what he had done, the more desperate he became. He didn't see any future for himself. It seemed that things couldn't possibly be worse. Then one day, a prison official came to Tom's prison cell and said, "Tom, I have some good news and some bad news." Tom looked up. He prepared himself for the worst. The good news is that a lawyer has been assigned to your case, and he is the best lawyer in the whole world. Tom was silent. He knew there had to be a catch somewhere, and sure enough, there was. The official continued, "The bad news is that the prosecuting attorney has also been assigned to your case, and he is the best prosecuting attorney in the entire world." Tom remained silent. The prison official shook his head. "The lawyer must be crazy to think of defending you. But anyway, he'll be here to see you tomorrow." And he turned and walked away. The next day, a quiet sort of gentleman came to Tom's prison cell and knocked. Tom looked up and began to laugh and said, "You've got the key, so why knock?" The visitor replied, "I only go where I am invited." "Well, come in," Tom said. I'm not going anywhere." The visitor opened the door and entered and sat down. "So, who are you anyways?" Tom asked. "I'm a lawyer." "I understand you are looking for a lawyer to take your case." "Yes," said Tom. "It's about time they finally send me someone. But tell me about your qualifications. The prison official said that you are supposed to be very good. But if you are very good, I may not be able to pay your price. Tell me so I can know how much I need to pay." "Well," said the lawyer, "I have some news for you. The good news is that I have never lost a case. I can guarantee the outcome of the trial. If you'll place yourself in my hands." "And the bad news is the price, right?" said Tom. The lawyer nodded. "Okay, tell me, how much is it going to cost?" "It is free," said the lawyer. "What did you say?" asked Tom. "It's free," repeated the lawyer. Tom answered back and said, "I'm not a rich man, but I don't need your charity. If I can get out of this jail, I can raise the money and pay for your services." The lawyer smiled kindly. "No, if you want my help, you must accept it as a gift. You cannot pay me for any part of it. It is totally and completely free. It's one of the conditions of me taking your case." Tom was silent for a few minutes and then asked, "What are your conditions?" "Well," said the lawyer, "I have some more good news and bad news for you. The good news is that all you have to do is, if you want me to take your case, if you just ask me, and I will take it immediately. The bad news is that if I take your case, you'll have to plead guilty." Tom was shocked. "Aren't you guilty?" asked the lawyer. "Well, yes. But if I plead guilty to all the charges placed against me, I won't stand a chance. How can you possibly think you'll be able to help me if I plead guilty?" "I have some bad news and some good news," said the lawyer. "The bad news is that if you plead guilty, of course you'll be convicted. And if you don't plead guilty, the prosecuting attorney has sufficient proof that you'll be convicted anyways. Either way, there's no doubt that you will get the death sentence." "Then why even have a trial?" said Tom. "You've forgotten that I have some good news," said the lawyer. "I'm willing to take your sentence and let you go free." "No way," said Tom. "There's not any way that I could let you pay for my crimes." The lawyer replied gently, "But Tom, I already have paid. All that remains is for you to accept my substitution on your behalf. It is yours if you accept it, and it's complete. It will cover completely your crimes." After a long moment, Tom asked quietly, "Is there anything else I should know for the trial?" The lawyer nodded. "You will be pardoned. There is no question about that. You'll be able to stand before God and man as though you have never sinned. You won't be a criminal anymore. You'll be a new person. While you are waiting for your trial to take place, you won't continue to lie and cheat, steal, and kill. You will become pure and honest and trustworthy. We will work closely together. You and I will become good friends. As we associate together day by day, you will come to hate the things you once loved and love the things you once hated. You will become a new person altogether." "I'm not sure about that," said Tom. "The idea of a pardon looks pretty good to me, but what if I want to go my own way? Can't we just arrange it so I can be released from the penalties of my actions? Do I really have to stop being a crook?" "The pardon is only good for those who are willing to give them a new life," said the lawyer. Tom stared at the floor while the lawyer waited patiently for his decision. At last, Tom raised his head. "I would like to ask you to take my case," he said. "I admit that I'm guilty, and I don't really want to keep on being so bad. I accept your help." The lawyer rose and held out his hand. Tom shook it firmly, and the contract was sealed. "Is there anything else that I should know before you leave?" said Tom. "Yes, there is one final thing," replied the lawyer. "I have one last bit of good news and bad news for you." Tom smiled. "Give me the bad news first and get it over with. Although it doesn't seem as though any of your bad news has been that bad." The lawyer smiled too. "All right, the bad news is that we have to set a date for your trial." "Why, that's not bad news at all," replied Tom. "With a lawyer like you, do you think I would want to stay here in this place forever and never have my case to go to court? The news of going to trial is good news, and your good news has to be pretty good to outdo that." The lawyer looked into Tom's eyes for a moment before he said gently, "The good news is this. When you come to trial, I will not only be your lawyer, I will be your judge as well." Brothers and sisters, there is good news for you too. Because of the complete sacrifice of Jesus, you can come to him and look into his friendly eyes. He too can come to you with the good news that he will take all of your sins and give you all of his righteousness. He is still offering this today. Are you interested? Take the good news. Accept it. Jesus' offer is still extended today, as on the first day when you first became a Christian. Jesus is still offering it to you today, no matter who you are or where you've been. His righteousness in exchange for your sin, you can accept him today and again stand before God. You can stand before God as though you had never sinned. Jesus did pay it all for you and for me. Amen.